This video is for people who want to save money for travel the smart way. Hey guys, it's Vanessa from Wander Onwards, and today's video is about saving money for travel. These are my top tips that literally changed my life. They might seem a little bit silly, but if you think about the psychology behind it, it makes a lot of sense. Travel doesn't have to be expensive. It's all about saving the right amount of money for your lifestyle. Let's try to limit the shopping sprees in Paris, okay? In this video, you're going to learn how to budget based on region, how to create a travel sinking fund, quick ways to save money for travel, easy budget hacks for everyone, and how to make your money last. Hey guys, it's Vanessa from Wander Onwards, and welcome back to my Pink Money series. Just as corporations rebrand ordinary and mundane objects into pink, more women-friendly options, I've put a pink border around this video so women know it's for them. As a reminder, this is for informational purposes only. This is not intended to be tax, legal, or finance advice. I actually was able to backpack Southeast Asia for 3 months on just a couple $1,000s. I don't recommend this at all because it was a really tight budget and I could have done so much more. But I was young, I was unemployed, and really it was the experience I was interested in. Saving money for traveling is all about discipline. You need to make sure you understand how much travel is going to cost you and then adjust your lifestyle in your home country accordingly. I want to emphasize that travel is not just for rich people. I was like super broke when I started traveling, and you know what? The spirit still lives inside of me. Sure, I'm staying at a little bit more fancy hotels now that I'm an adult, but I could definitely still travel on a shoestring budget if that was my only option. There are ways for you to see the world, and you don't even know it yet. Let me teach you how. Now, when you start to plan your long-term travel or even just a trip, the first place you have to start with is the region. This will dictate how much money you need to save and what sort of budget you need to set up for when you're actually there. In some regions, you'll need far less money than in others. For example, in places like Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, a shoestring budget will go much further than in places like Iceland, Norway, Sweden. I'm not trying to discourage you from going to the Nordics, but you really need to pay attention to what the cost of living is there, because these sneaky airlines seem to draw you in with cheap flights, and then you get there and you have no money to do anything. I once spent $1,000 for 2 days in Iceland. Yeah, I quickly decided to cancel my trip after that. I have a full-length blog article about what regions are more or less expensive, and I've linked it down below. In this article, I have a highly generalized chart about which regions are more or less expensive, and you can start there when deciding where you want to travel to. Now, once you've figured out where you want to go, you need your budget to reflect the cost of living, where you're going to stay, transportation, foods, having a little bit of fun. Did you know that in the UAE, alcohol is taxed at crazy rates? I spent $100 for like 4 drinks. This is the important information you need to know. Because if you're like a big party girl, like I used to be, then maybe the UAE is not on your first priority list. So in certain regions like Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, you can get by on a shoestring budget relatively comfortably. I would classify this as more affordable traveling. For these more affordable regions, I start with a budget of about $300 per week. Now, that doesn't include my international flights. Now, this is because I'm constantly picking up random international flights on the internet. I use Skyscanner and Expedia, and I've linked them down below. With these 2 online travel agencies, I've been able to find crazy cheap international flights, so I leave that out of my budget while I start initially planning. In more expensive regions like Sweden or Norway or the UAE, I normally go with a budget of $1,400 per week when I'm thinking about accommodation, food, transport, all the necessities. Now, these 2 numbers are pretty different. $300 versus $1,400. And these numbers are based on a modest style of traveling. So 3-star hotel or maybe a hostel, you're not going to the fanciest places to eat, you're enjoying a more local experience, and you do maximum 1 tourist trap a day. Yeah, I said it, tourist trap. So with that being said, you could obviously do these places for cheap. I'd be very impressed if you did it for under $100 a week in Latin America. Comment down below if you were able to. But at the same time, you didn't just travel thousands of miles to eat sandwiches by yourself at home. There should be some flexibility in your budget, otherwise maybe you're not ready to leave. Next, you need to create a sinking fund. This is actually a term we use in the personal finance world, which just means a pot of money that is meant to be spent. You can build a sinking fund by strategically moving money over every month until you hit your fund goal. This way, once you hit that goal, you have a dedicated, ring-fenced amount of money set aside for you to do whatever the hell you want. Try not to feel too guilty about it when you're in Paris living it up. Let's do an example of this together. Now, if Vanessa is taking a solo trip to the United Kingdom for 2 weeks, then she needs to create a budget. Her sinking fund, or pot of money for traveling, will then be estimated at $2,200 for 2 weeks, not including international travel. I would price international flights from LAX to London at $800. This means that my sinking fund needs to have about $3,000. And this would be so I could comfortably enjoy a decent hotel, mid-range restaurants, and have a good time. I'm not really about that hostel life anymore because I'm an adult person. I need my space. Now, in order to hit this sinking fund goal in 6 months, I need to put away about $500 per month. Now, I know what you're thinking. How am I magically gonna find $3,000? Well, I'm glad you asked. When you're preparing your budget to leave and go traveling, you need to understand exactly what your cash flow situation is. That means how much money is coming in and how much money is coming out. In order to hit your sinking fund goals the quickest, I would recommend creating a zero-based budget or a zero-sum budget. It's the same thing. Essentially, this is where you create categories of non-essential, essential, and nice-to-have expenses. This will give every dollar a job and allow you to hit your $500 or whatever your goal is per month. I have a video on this and I'll drop it in the description box. Now let's say your paycheck is about $3,000. This is an example, remember. $1,000 of that could go to fixed expenses such as bills, housing, anything you're legally required to pay. $1,000 of that could then go into non-essential purchases. So going out, clothing, shopping, I don't really care what you do with your money. The last category in savings and investments is then fenced off for, you guessed it, part of your sinking fund that is dedicated to travel. And then the second part, whatever your financial goals are. This is just an example for you to easily see the numbers in your mind, but I would highly recommend creating a similar budget for your actual numbers, and I'll link a video how to do that down below. Okay, here's where things get really exciting. Budget hacks to save money for travel. Now, if you want to save a lot of money really quickly, you need to focus on your non-essential purchases. This is the category that you don't really need to spend, so you need to be more diligent with how you address it so you can use that money for something else, like travel. You see, when we're dealing with money, we make emotional or calculated decisions that then have knock-on effects later down the road on our budget. So, my number one tip to save money, lose weight, get your life together, is to be home no later than 8 p.m. I know, I'd be crazy and stuff, but that means you can invite people over, come on. Being home by 8 p.m. will directly impact your saving and investment goals. This will directly reduce wasteful spending on social activities, but you can still invite your friends and family over for food, drinks, and cheese man. My second top tip is to pick up a side hustle. Then move those profits through an LLC, or a limited liability corporation. This will lower the amount of tax you owe on that money immensely because you can then deduct things like technology that you use for your business, travel that is business related, and even your rent if it is used for your business. Do you see what I'm saying here? My third top tip, cook your own food. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner. Loads of opportunities to save money, and I cook like 90% of the food I eat. I mean, Marcus cooks 90% of the food I eat, and this has made a huge difference on my budget and savings goals. As a result of all this cooking, I actually bring leftovers from the night before, so I'm constantly saving money. If lunch costs you $10 per work day, then in just one work week, you'll save over $200 by not buying lunch. That's half the way to Vanessa's sinking fund goals right there. Next tip, literally freeze your credit card in the freezer or the icebox or whatever you want to call the thing that freezes things in your home. This will directly decrease usage because it's so annoying to have to break it out. You can't microwave it because it's made out of metal. So you're forced to wait for that block of ice to melt, and during that time, you'll hopefully come to your senses. I actually require this to be done for all of my financial consulting clients because I want them to have physical barriers when spending money. Only then do you start to develop better habits. Next tip, call whatever service providers you have and threaten to leave them. No one shapes up as quickly as someone who's being told they're gonna get broken up with. You can tell people I gave you that advice. Like in relationship, if you call your service providers and say that you want to leave because you found a better deal elsewhere, they're going to try to work with you to get that price down. They might even match it sometimes, which is going to be a huge saver for you. You can do this about once a year. I wouldn't do it every other month, but it's definitely a great way to get those bills down. And finally, sell old books, furniture, clothing, ex-boyfriends, whatever you gotta do online to make some extra cash. In order to keep that cash in one place so you don't accidentally spend it, why not put it in like a decorative jar that you've paint over completely so you can't really see what's inside. And it'll be really exciting for you to check out how much you actually saved. These are just a few of my favorite tips. Be sure to give them a try and comment down below how they went for you. Or just like DM me on Instagram. I know you can do it. It's easy to feel like Puff Daddy when you're on vacation, but let's take it down a notch. The reality is you worked hard to save this money. Why would you just blow it all on something that wasn't really meaningful? Here's my top tips for making money last. Pay for everything up front. Once you understand how much money you don't have, that makes budgeting so much easier. Don't be traveling with credit. If you can't travel with cash, then you're not in a position to travel. I dug myself into like $10,000 worth of credit card debt doing just this, so I empathize, I see you, and it took me a year to undo all that. It's just genuinely not worth it. 2, take advantage of your hotel's breakfast policy. Eat up, eat generously. Be sure you wake up on time and you're not just partying the morning away. This is a smart way to start your day off on the right foot. Bonus points if you sneak a pastry for later. So my breakfast strategy normally looks a little something like this. I wake up at the ass crack of dawn and I go get my Instagram photos before anyone wakes up. Then I come back to the hotel around 10-ish, so still while the buffet or whatever it is open, and then I stuff my face. This then allows me to come back home, drop off all of my camera equipment, and then enjoy myself in the late morning. Tip number 3, skip the fancy restaurants and experiences. Most of these are tourist traps, and for the price of an incredible cave restaurant on the coast of Italy, it was like $130 per person. You couldn't even go in and like have drinks. They specifically said that on the brochure. And then once I started Googling the type of food that they had, I started to find out the food was subpar. That $130 doesn't come with any booze, the service was insulting, and at the end of the day, I just couldn't bring myself to pay that much money for such a terrible experience. Likewise, when you're in places like Paris or London, the fanciest places aren't gonna care about you. You're someone on a budget. Instead, they're gonna focus on the rich people who are there that are just spending because that adds more money to the business and they give better tips. Need I say more? Last tip, don't go out too late. Yes, I know I sound like your mother, but honestly, it's just physics. The later you go out at night, the lighter your bank account becomes. Bring it up with Einstein if you have a problem with it. Even if you don't drink, things start to add up quickly. If you're thinking about safety, you're gonna wanna take taxis everywhere, or maybe that's even more dangerous. There's gonna be entrance fees. There's going to be some sort of cost to the evening because that's what nightclubs do. That's what bars do. Just try to be like Cinderella and come home when the clock strikes midnight. This way, you can get up on time for that free hotel breakfast and not feel like hell all day. I hope this article was super helpful in whatever sort of goals that you have, travel or otherwise. I want to encourage everyone out there to go see the world, go experience a life that is different than yours, because whatever you spend in money, you get back 10 times in experience. There's a whole world out there. Don't forget to catch up with me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. You know, I'm trying to do that TikTok now with the young kids. And be sure to DM me directly. I love hearing from you guys. If you have any questions about this video, comment down below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. If you liked that video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to get notified about new videos every week.